We're recording.
Pardon my French. Whoops.
Meeting will please come to order. Barbara, please call the roll.
We have Commissioners Berard, Fleming, Funderburk, Levine, and Noonan present.
Thank you. This proceeding is broadcast on Channel 35. The exact broadcast times can be found by contacting Channel 35. I have brief opening remarks, and they are to compliment the General Manager and the entire team on the extremely challenging but very, very necessary and successful effort that the team undertook to accomplish a badly needed rate increase. It was a very, very, it's always difficult to ask, and it's always difficult for a elected official to support an increase in rates or taxes or fees or anything that comes out of our ratepayers' pockets. The ratepayer advocate played an extremely important role. He did a very thoughtful and thorough review of the proposal and concluded appropriately that it was just and reasonable. This is a tough vote for members of the City Council, and the extraordinary outreach and transparency and hard work that our staff put in over 80 community meetings in every part of the city, led by the quarterback of our blonde quarterback here, was essential and was effective. So none of us enjoyed voting for a rate increase. It's a tough vote. Everybody did because they understood its importance. Those of us who voted for it, and 12 members of the City Council, an extraordinary number, really, on a tough vote like this, agreed. And I want to compliment the staff on their very hard work in accomplishing something tough but very necessary. Report or briefing by the General Manager, including reports from Water, Power, and Administrative System Management.
I have nothing today, sir.
Comments from Commissioners on agendized items and requests from Commissioners relating to departmental operations.
President Levine, I appreciate this opportunity. I actually have put a lot of thought into this and have actually addressed this over many years, and so please allow me to read the notes that I wrote last night. So, our constituents requested to have a third-party ratepayer advocacy agency oversee the decisions initiated and voted upon by this board. During their posted office, I have been asked by the Ratepayer Advocate Agency as a commissioner to afford them the detailed agenda items at the same time that our board members receive those. Typically, they arrive on Friday afternoon prior to our anticipated Tuesday board meeting. Therefore, I am initiating a resolution to have DWP's Ratepayer Advocacy Agency receive the same complete board packages, with the exception of closed item materials, electronically 3 business days prior to board meetings. And I request that this initiative be added to our next board meeting's agenda. This request supports the expectations of our ratepayers, the transparency of the department and our board, which it aspires to. And logistically, in my humble opinion, I think that this should have been addressed, if not a year ago, perhaps 3 years ago. So I would like to add that to our next board meeting's agenda.
I'm going to resist that suggestion, and I'm going to take the liberty of responding. I have, as Commissioner Noonan knows, I have the highest respect for her. I think she's an enormously diligent commissioner who does a terrific job. I think the ratepayer advocate or whoever in the ratepayer advocate's office made this request to the commissioner put her in a very, very difficult and an unfortunate position. This is micromanagement at the lowest possible level. I'd like to ask the General Manager, has the ratepayer advocate ever asked you for this? Isn't this something that could be done with a simple request? And if so, if you were ever asked, when and by whom? And what is the procedure for providing information to the ratepayer advocate? It's my understanding that it's, number one, publicly available, and number two, that it's accessible by them, and number three, that you have always been willing to provide them with information whenever they want it.
Probably three main ways to get information. One is the ratepayer advocate did ask me for copies of what we call Executive Directive 4 letters. They are cover letters that go on top of the board material because it goes to the mayor's office and the CAO's office for approval before you even see it. So he asked to be provided those documents, and we did that.
So they see that before we see it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The second way is ask me. I mean, I don't recall ever being asked for a board book, and the reason being is that the board books are delivered to the commissioners almost at the same time that the agenda and the links to all the data are made publicly available. There's maybe, we looked at the timestamp data, there's maybe an hour between the two. But if he wants a physical book, okay, we put one together for this meeting.
Has he asked you for it?
No, no one's asked me for it yet.
So if the ratepayer advocate is interested in it, can they ask you for it instead of asking a commissioner to go to the trouble of putting a resolution together and micromanaging this process?
I go out of my way to give the ratepayer advocate what they ask me for. Now, sometimes if they ask staff, if they get pushback, then they should bring it up to me.
But they have not done so. Okay, I mean, I think, Commissioner, that the simple solution would be for the ratepayer advocate to ask the general manager, and she has already indicated she'll say yes. We don't need to have a resolution for this.
Okay, and I will object because I have been asked 3 times by this agency to provide them with our board materials at the same time that we receive them. And given the reason why this agency was created and the fact that the ratepayers are paying for their offices, their employment, I think in a spirit of transparency, if you're going to provide those materials anyway, why not make a resolution so that we're all clear on what the expectations are?
Well, my response to that is this is internal micromanagement and takes time, effort, energy, and shouldn't be necessary when it can be done with a simple telephone call. Wow. Dr. Pickle, have you ever asked the general manager for this information? And why did you feel the need to go to a commissioner and not ask the general manager, or was it someone on your staff?
We've asked for a copy of the board book starting 4 years ago.
Who did you ask?
I believe we asked the president of the commission, as well as the general manager, as well as the secretary of the commission.
I don't recall being asked, and the general manager apparently doesn't recall being asked.
I recall asking you early in your term about having one, and you said you'd get us one, but it never happened.
Dr. Pickle, you do know all the information's available online at the same time those board books are being delivered. Is it you just want us to do the copying? I don't know what you want.
Occasionally there are memos included with the board book. At least on one occasion we've encountered. We don't see them, so on one occasion we encountered there are occasionally explanatory memos or materials sent as part of the board book that are not available online, and we appreciate having those. When we have had them in the past, they've been very beneficial. So yes, we would appreciate this. As I said, early in your term we asked for it. You said you'd get it, but it didn't happen. I think it goes beyond asking the general manager, because the prior general manager was much more resistant to providing any information without specific written requests. And so...
Well, has this general manager been resistant? I frankly don't recall.
No, she hasn't, but we'd prefer to have this transcend who's president of the commission, who's general manager. This seemed like a good time. When we were discussing overall reform or DWP process, we tried to think of simple things that might be able to be implemented now at the board level. And this is...
Wouldn't it have been simpler to just ask the general manager?
The difference is documenting it in a board resolution and in the board rules, which we understand are delicately described as vintage. What might be updated now, this is one simple step.
Well, I oppose the suggestion, and we'll have a vote.
Can I say something? I mean,
Thank you.
I want to take one step further, President Levine. Commissioner Noonan has intellectually surpassed, I think, most of the commissioners on this commission in respect to a lot of areas that she has not like ever gotten recognition for, and I just want to bring that to light because I think that I respect what she's brought up here. Specifically, her expertise in real estate, her expertise in insurance has been invaluable in analyzing some of the issues that we have on environmental, and I think that that's really been a benefit to the commission. The reason I wanted to weigh in on this is that I brought this issue up probably 2 or 3 months ago, and I think that I don't see a need for resolution. By the way, I think that there's a communication protocol issue that, and the ratepayer advocate, Dr. Pickle, I have already said how much I respect him, but I do think that the protocols we need to kind of observe protocol here. And Dr. Pickle, you're the ratepayer advocate, you speak for that office, and I think that if there's a request that means a lot to you, I think that that can go to President Levine or General Manager Edwards. And the reason that I don't want to do this resolution is this: I don't want to set precedent and be passing 90 resolutions for how communications are made when the issue is not specifically this board book. The issue actually is the communication protocols. And I think that, I would just ask Dr. Pickle to, if you've got a list of things that you don't have, put it in writing and send it to President Levine, General Manager Edwards, and try to understand that we as a public utility, unlike an investor-owned utility, we operate under different constraints. We have expertise that we bring to the board as board members, but I think that one of the things that gets overlooked here is that if the requests that are being made from the RPA start to pile up and aren't kind of mapped out as one request, it can create a lot of duplicative work for the general manager. And I think that the RPA's office is very aware of the constraints that we're operating under from our hiring and our employment end. In fact, in your own reports, whether it's a Navigant report or the PS whatever report, the reports that you've done independently looking at the workforce here, General Manager Edwards has some constraints that she's working with. And so I think that to bring a very small issue like this up to the board level, I think it's good because it's got the attention of the board now, and obviously, and we're having an open discussion. But I don't know if we want to be passing micro resolutions like this. I have a problem with that.
Well, I appreciate your compliments, Commissioner Thunderbrook. By the same token, I take offense to the fact that you're asking somebody who's sitting on our board at this table to just look up the agendized items online. I think that's an insult to the agency, and I think it's an insult to Mr. Pickle personally. Having served on this board and the prior board, I understand that the intent of having a rate advocacy, ratepayer agency, was to create further transparency within DWP. And if there's nothing to be hidden, why not provide them with the detailed agendized items that we receive on Friday afternoons prior to Tuesday? That way, they can oversee the decisions that we're making. I feel that we're a competent board, but I think that the ratepayers asked for this, and I think it's appropriate. So why not go forward with a formal resolution?
And the answer to that is the general manager just said she'd be happy to do it.
But it's not happening.
Well, let's see if it happens. You want to give it 2 weeks and see if it happens instead of going through the formality of a resolution. Dr. Pickle, You may have asked me. I frankly have no recollection of it. I'm not challenging that you asked me. I don't think you ever followed up if you did ask me, and I apologize if I didn't follow up. I mean, sometimes people get overloaded. I don't think I ever received any written requests. I don't think the general manager received any request. But Mr. Funderburk's arguments to me are extremely important. We shouldn't be spending commission time dealing with something that can be handled by a simple request. And we certainly shouldn't be asking commissioners to pass resolutions. This is not an issue of increased transparency. The general manager has made it clear publicly that she's perfectly prepared to provide you with this information. You had never asked her for it. It's now clear to her that you'd like it. She said, fine. I support it. The entire board will support your getting it. But to decide that you go to a commissioner to seek a formal resolution for something that can be accomplished with a phone call or a brief letter strikes me as a terrible precedent. And I incorporate Mr. Funderburk's comments by reference as my own as well.
And I want to clarify matters. I was not pushed to make this motion. I take insult to the fact that you've stated that this information has not been requested, because it has been requested to me 3 times, and I have relayed those requests to the department over the 4 years that this agency has been established. And if there's no problem in furthering communication, why not vote on a resolution at the next board meeting?
Commissioner Noonan, have you relayed the request that you received to the president and the general manager
Yes.
for the board books?
Yes, and also to Richard Brown.
I would like to offer perhaps just a clarifying comment. When I talk about the board books, to me it's the enclosed information, not the physical book. And so while I don't recall being asked, it would not surprise me if I thought, well, wait a minute, it's available at the same time online, then why would they necessarily need a physical book? So maybe I misunderstood, knowing the information was already available, not just to the RPA, but to the public. Now, Fred did make mention that there may, in fact, be other memos, things that are included in the board package. Of that, I'm not aware, but to the extent that they are made a portion of the package, then those too should be provided to the ratepayer advocate.
And you have no problem doing that?
No.
And you'd be happy to make sure it's done?
And if he wants a physical book, I will do that too.
I'm not satisfied just with this commentary. I'm really asking for a resolution to make this legal. Who knows if I'm going to be serving on this board, 6, 9, 36 months from now, who knows? But I do want a clear understanding as to what the expectations are. I think that's the reason why this agency was created. And if we're working with transparency and working collectively as this agency has in approving the rate increases that we've requested as a board, I know that this agency has spent hundreds and hundreds of hours meeting with neighborhood councils. Why not increase that relationship and transparency? And so I'm still asking for this resolution to be voted on at the next board meeting.
Can I just ask one other thing? So if the ratepayer advocate did not get his request for the integrated resource plan numbers, and do we go ahead and pass a resolution saying that it's got to be produced with I'm very concerned about the slippery slope here. I mean, it's not, but Commissioner Noonan, it is not at all, I'm not sugarcoating. This is not an insult at all intended for you. What I am thinking about is systemic change. That's what we're on here for. You've done it. You carried it over from the previous administration and helped us out. And I am concerned that this mechanism that's in place is going to get overused and burden the board with a lot of unnecessary things that could just be handled with agreeing to protocols for communication, which I think, going back to that clearly needs to be hammered out.
I have the utmost respect for my fellow commissioners, all 4 of you. I really do. But the reason why this agency was created was due to the mayor's office, our ratepayers wanting a third party to oversee the materials that we're looking at and what we're voting on. And I am totally comfortable with that, given that I feel complete integrity with every vote I've made serving on this board. And so, you know what, perhaps it may be an extra burden if they pose intelligent questions, but I think that's our responsibility as civic servants to the city.
I probably don't have any problems with the merits of the argument about getting things to the RPA in a timely manner, but I'm not even going to get there because this is not the process by which to do this, and this was not a fair thing to do to a commissioner. And I do find it a little delicious that the suggestion was made to you. And I do find it a little delicious that the RPA, which at least in my brief period of time on this commission is often late with their own comments to us, or surprise comments to us at the last minute, or surprise materials at the last minute, is concerned about not getting some of these materials in a timely manner when they are available to everybody in a timely manner. So I think an offline conversation can be had, should have been had, might have been had, about how to get these materials to the RPA in a timely manner, in the same manner in which we get them. But this is not the process by which to do this. And so I would vote no, simply because I don't want to get to the merits of it. The process is wrong.
All right, and I would like to clarify that nobody has pushed me to make this argument. I've been asked as the commissioner 3 times by this agency to forward the same materials that we review at the same time as we do as a board. I think that is the spirit in which this agency was created. So nobody's been asking me to do anything. I'm just following my own conscience. And just for reference, I did try to take this offline, and it looked like a resolution was being made. It was forwarded to the city attorney's office, and then a few days later, I was told that it was being canceled. So just for your reference, I don't think your direction is going to help any, in that I tried to achieve this understanding amongst our public, the department, our board, in a respectful, private manner, and it was terminated. So I think that your suggestion to do what I tried to do prior to this board meeting is not going to be realized.
Well, just for the record, I think, and again, with all due respect, I think what you tried to do was not just to facilitate the information to the RPA, which I think is a given at this point, but to insist on a resolution. And the reason I think I'm speaking, at least for the other members who have spoken opposed to this, is we don't think a resolution is the right way to do it. We're not at all challenging the appropriateness of having the RPA have that information, because, as the general manager has made clear, it will be made available, and had she been asked, it would have been made available before.
It had been asked, and it was not made available. And I think it's an insult to this agency to have them go online with the rest of the public to review the materials that were afforded on a Friday afternoon prior to a Tuesday meeting.
Council, what is the appropriate way to bring this to a head at this moment?
Yes, Commission Member Noonan having requested that this be placed on agenda, at this point the issue would be whether there is a second to have that motion considered, and then a vote, if there is a second, as to whether it should be placed on agenda.
Is there a second to Commissioner Noonan's suggestion? There's not.
Interesting. Disappointing, in my opinion.
Thank you. Public comments, 1 comment card.
Okay, the public speaker is Tony Wilkinson.
Tony Wilkinson, Chair of the Neighborhood Council DWP MOU Oversight Committee, and reform proposals were mentioned, and I'm here to speak to that issue because there is, of course, a proposal to make some changes in DWP governance. It may begin with a motion by Councilmember Fuentes. I want to assure you that from my conversations, that motion is not necessarily a done deal, and now is the time I'm here to invite the general public to participate in this discussion. There more than likely will be a ballot measure in November. The question is what is going to be on that ballot measure. Neighborhood councils are going to deal with this issue in their own communities as much as possible, and the neighborhood council system is going to work with both Mayor Garcetti and Council President Wesson to convene at least 3 regional meetings where everyone in the community can come and weigh in. Issues include things like whether to keep the existing board but strengthen it, which is a fiduciary board, or whether or not it's in the city's and ratepayers' interest instead to move to a paid management board, or maybe, as Commissioner Barad suggested in the last board meeting, the issue is really how much of the many points of oversight of this existing city government need to be eliminated in favor of the board control. And number 2 is the tremendous turnover of staff that the department is going to have in both senior management, skilled crafts, across the board. And I think that the department and the owners of the department and its labor partners all have really strong interests in facing the reality that the existing civil service system is very challenging in terms of being able to meet those changes, and whether the options are a new streamlined civil service system run by the department's own personnel department or removal of civil service, that should be up for discussion. And finally, the last item, which is to try and streamline the contracting system so it's less Byzantine, will maybe get more people to participate, to add resources to the RPA office, and to have lawyers that are your own lawyers. So dwpreform.lacity.org. Weigh in. We've got a month and a half. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkinson. And I just want to both compliment you and the neighborhood councils for your leadership on this, and join you in encouraging interested people to engage in this extremely important process. Thank you. Comments from ratepayer advocate on agendized items.
We'll have brief comments on items 20, 21, and 22.
Thank you. We're going to take up a resolution out of order, but before we do that, there's been a request to defer item 17, and I would move that we defer item 17. Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
It's deferred. Item 16, resolution honoring Richard M. Brown, General Counsel for LADWP, upon completion of 12 years of city service and his retirement. Who is presenting this resolution?
As the Assistant General Counsel, just wanted to recognize Rich Brown for his 12 years of service with the city and the great leadership he's role he's played in working with the department over those 12 years, and just want to give him that opportunity to be recognized at this time.
Well, I'll chime in for a moment. At least during the time of, I guess, all of us, including Christina's service on the prior board, Rich has been the general counsel who's provided guidance, assistance, wise counsel, a lot of baseball expertise that helps with common sense, and he's very easy and enjoyable to work with. He's both wise and practical. And I know I'm speaking for everybody on the commission, but any of them are welcome to speak for themselves as well in complimenting you on the work you've done and thanking you for your assistance over all of these years that predate all of our board services. We have a resolution here. Would you like to come up and receive it? Would you like to say anything?
I'd like to say a few words, if I could. Easier sitting there than standing here. But I would, first of all, tell you how much I appreciate this honor, as well as the opportunity to serve as your general counsel for the past 12+ years. In addition, I'd like to extend my appreciation and gratitude to the DWP legal department, both the attorneys and support staff. They truly are the most gifted and finest people I've worked with in almost 50 years of practicing law.
Can they hit and steal bases and run?
They can't run, but they can hit and steal.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Come on up and receive your. Overloaded on the right side. Marcy, why don't you?
Red and circle. Want to see Christina has to be
Okay, well, let's do some now. Come on. Okay. Okay. All right, here we go. Here's the first one. Big smile, everyone. That's good. Good. Tilt that. Oh, yeah, just a little bit. Square it up a little bit more. There you go. A little bit of reflection. Here we go again. Okay. Tilt the top of it forward. Yeah. Yeah. That's fine. Very nice. Let's try that again. Here we go. Okay, much better. Here we go again. A couple more. Here we go. That's very good. Here we go. There we go. And one last one. That's it right there. Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you. Here you are.
Thank you, Marcy. Thank you. Okay, we move to approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting on March 1st, 2016?
You need to do a vote for the resolution?
Oh, I move that we approve the resolution. Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's a close vote, Rich. Okay, is there a motion to approve the minutes of the March 1st meeting?
So moved.
Second, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, they're approved. On the consent calendar, there is a speaker card on item 18. Oh, wait a second, that's not on the consent calendar. So items 7 through 15, do any commissioners wish to remove any items from the consent calendar? Is there a motion to approve those items?
So moved.
Second, those in favor? Aye. Those items are approved. And now we move to item 16, which is the resolution we just approved, honoring Rich. Item 17, agreements number...
We deferred 17.
Yes, okay. We move to item 18, and there's a speaker card.
Okay, the speaker is Tony Wilkinson.
Oh, that's deferred. That item's deferred, Tony. Okay, 18, update to the Owens Lake water use policy.
We'll hear from Rick Chersick and Milad Tagavi. We'll discuss this.
I'm sorry, before you take that, that was actually for Owens Valley, can I get the refund?
Yes. It's not Owens Valley, it's Owens Lake.
Owens Lake. Sorry about that, but it is.
Owens Lake is in Owens Valley.
Read my mind.
However,
It does actually, in a way, represent.
present the whole Owens Valley. The card was general public comment, but I do want to say that I'm speaking in favor of this motion because I think that this opportunity is a point, a very positive point we're at because of a lot of work done by this board, very specifically Commissioner Funderburk and you, President Levine, with our friends in the Owens Valley to convince everyone involved that the City of Los Angeles and this board strongly supports the city's obligations for dust control and environmental stewardship. it's now the opportunity, given that partnership understanding, to say that some arbitrary amount of water dumped on the lake is not the same as meeting our responsibilities. And in the last year, as the board water report shows, in this terrible drought year, we got almost nothing from our aqueduct. So I think it's time in partnership to say we are going to fulfill these responsibilities together with our partners, but it's not tied to a specific amount of drinking water, potential drinking water, which is not appropriate in the state's new water situation.
Thank you. Mr. Harisick.
Yes, Richard Harisick, Director of Water Operations. So what you have before you today is an update to the Owens Lake water use policy. In 2 previous instances, the board has set a policy based on either a target percentage or a volume reduction of water that we use on Owens Lake for dust mitigation. In this updated policy, we're affirming LADWP's position that all potential water savings on Owens Lake should be pursued, irrespective of any target number or a volume reduction. And it's important in all 3 of these policies and this latest update that we will be meeting our dust mitigation obligations and our commitment to maintaining our current habitat value at Owens Lake. You have before you in the background material some of the ways we're going to accomplish that. I'm going to highlight 3 of those. One is to carefully monitor the current habitat and other groundwater and water-dependent resources on the lake, most notably the birds that have found a great home in Owens Lake. And the way we're going to do that is the utilization of a really cool model that we have, the Owens Lake Habitat Suitability Model. And what this model attempts to do is to take a look at all of those factors that benefit bird populations and maintain the value that they have. And so, in other words, we believe that we can maintain the population of birds out there with less water. We are also going to be prudently using environmentally sustainable water from beneath Owens Lake. We have a project going on now, a research project, to see how much water beneath Owens Lake would be available to be used for dust mitigation without impacting any of the geographically areas around that. And then the last 2 is really to this policy is complete, puts our activities in complete sync with the stipulated judgment and the settlement agreement that we had with Great Basin. In that, we are going to maximize all of the dust mitigation measures that your board negotiated for us to use to their full extent. So all less water intensive, any hybrid, any non-water dust mitigation measures, we're going to develop those to the hilt. And any areas that do not use the best water conserving methods of dust control, to the extent feasible, we're going to transition those areas to such. So this policy directs staff to pursue that from this board level, and it also lets those who we are negotiating with on our master plan up there to know that the department is serious about 2 things: saving water and maintaining the habitat in the area.
Excellent. I just have brief comments.
Sure.
This is a very solid policy, and I appreciate your leadership on it. And in that context, I want to compliment you and the rest of the Owens Lake team for being so proactive, on top of things, your leadership and all of the positive things that you've been accomplishing up there. I know it's tough, and there's sometimes real challenges. There are always real challenges. But I've had the opportunity to work with you and others, and I couldn't be prouder of the professional team that we have doing all of this critically important work on Owens Lake.
Well, I just get to be the public face of all that, good and bad. But Malad here is the one and his crew that puts in really countless hours in meetings to negotiate with our partners far and wide that are interested in Owens Lake, folks from Sacramento locally and elsewhere. So he is to be congratulated and his team as well.
It's a great team.
Yeah.
It's a really great team. Commissioner Funderburk?
I feel I'm going to just repeat the same, incorporate by reference President Levine's remarks, but I want to, in particular, speak to the people who are on the lake, whom I've had the great opportunity of being able to work with as a board member, and Milad, you, and I think Nelson is no longer there. He's down here, but you and your team have done a professional, phenomenal job. I also want to thank the 2 other commissioners whose work sometimes doesn't get recognized, but is quite as important, if not more important, related to the INYO, because they are the commissioners on the INYO water agreement, and that's Commissioner Fleming and Noonan for their work in trying to keep the relationships with INYO County, the needs of INYO County as they overlap with the need to meet the regulatory requirements on Owens. But looking forward to continuing our efforts to save more water than we had even planned on saving a few years ago, and it might not be the 90% that I asked for, Richard, when I in my first meeting, but let's try to get there. Really appreciate the work.
Sir.
Other questions or comments? Is there a motion to approve item 18?
I'll move.
Second.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
To approve. Congratulations, and thank you again. Item 19, proposed amendments to the City of Los Angeles Emergency Water Conservation Plan Ordinance.
I will introduce this and then let my folks go through the details. We have Penny Falcon, who manages our water conservation group, and Kathy Chavez-Morris here to talk about this. This is an amendment to our water conservation ordinance that allows us and provides us a tool to deal with the highest water users in the city. There's been quite a bit of press over the last half a year about the so-called mega users, and in particular the top user who used 11-something million gallons of water last year. And how do we control or regulate that, or know that that's not a wasteful use? And so we had a council motion by Councilman Koretz, who also asked that question of what tools can we develop to deal with this. And so what we have in front of you today, and I'll let Penny and Kathy go through the details, but we have an amendment to the ordinance that gives us provision to deal with unreasonable water use. And it flags off of our Tier 4 customers, and particularly the chronic Tier 4 customers, which will be the new tiers April 15th when the new rates go into place, and then provides us a way in a very fair and measured fashion to assess the customers as to whether their use is reasonable or not, based on standard approaches that are approved and used throughout the state of California. It's not an arbitrary cut. We have an arbitrary first cut that then gets us to take a second look to evaluate each person's individual condition. It will require our staff to be engaged as they are now. A lot of the folks they're engaged with who receive the top 1% letters will be some of these same people. But we think it's a very reasonable approach. The idea, of course, is always to get people to comply and to save water, but it does provide some teeth, both currently in our current phase of the ordinance. Then also, if people don't change behavior or the drought becomes worse, it provides us increasing measures by which to take action if we don't get everyone to participate in using water reasonably throughout the city. So I'll let Penny go ahead and go through some of the details with you. We'll handle it.
Thank you, Marty. And good morning, President Levine and Commissioners. So as Marty noticed, we have before you some amendments proposed for the Water Conservation Ordinance, and I want to talk about two of the main ones. The first one is to create a surcharge, as Marty mentioned, to address the unreasonable water use amongst our highest water users. And the second proposal is to increase the existing surcharges for ordinance violations to better reflect the severity of the current drought or water supply conditions. So the first change I'm going to explain is that we're proposing to add a surcharge to those unreasonable uses. However, prior to the customer being subject to this penalty, a customer will be given an opportunity to participate in a water use analysis on their property, along with LADWP staff. So from this analysis that's completed, the LADWP staff will provide the customer with a water conservation plan that will include a water budget for their property based on, as Marty mentioned, the state adopted standards. Staff will then discuss this water conservation plan with the customer to make sure that they completely understand the results of the analysis and what the plan requires on their side. And only if the customer fails to comply with this plan that's been laid out for them will the customer be subject to a charge of an additional surcharge for unreasonable use. Now, the surcharge starts at $1,000 and goes up to $40,000, but that's only if we're in a severe, extremely severe drought and we're in Phase 5 of the Water Conservation Ordinance. Currently, we're in Phase 2. So the second proposal I want to explain to you is an amendment to increase the surcharges for those who violate the ordinance as the severity of the drought increases. So in other words, as your board approves us moving out of Phase 2 into advanced phases, you would also be authorizing higher water use or penalties if a customer violates the ordinance when we're in those higher phases. So for instance, currently we're in Phase 2, and the maximum fine for Phase 2 for meters that are less than 2 inches is currently $300. If this proposal passes, your board would authorize us to go to Phase 3 at some point in time. The maximum fine would be $600. If we went to Phase 4, the maximum fine would be $900, and Phase 5 would be $1,200. Now, these fines would be doubled for those meters that are greater than 2 inches. So we are making these recommendations to the board today in light of the severity of the drought that we are currently undergoing, and in an effort to identify and persuade customers with unreasonable water use to conserve water and use water more responsibly. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about the proposed ordinance in front of you today.
If I could chime in, I didn't mean to interrupt, but on the last part that Penny mentioned, so the fines that exist right now are for what's called prohibitive uses. So that's washing down your driveway, running your sprinklers so the water your car is parked in the street, watering the wrong time of day, too many days a week. So those are prohibited throughout the state of California, and they probably will be forever. And so what we're doing is just making sure that if the drought escalates and becomes more severe and water becomes more scarce, that the fines associated with that are proportional to that issue. And so we've issued in the last year and a half about 18,000 outreach letters or inspections to customers based on prohibited uses. Of that, 90% of the people have never received a fine because they've changed their behavior immediately. So it is a small percentage who continue to violate the ordinance once they know. So I just want to point that out. But we do need something that is more reflective in that case of increasing water scarcity, as well as a tool, the new tool to deal with the largest water users to make sure they're not inappropriately using water in the city.
I am a total proponent of water conservation, and I've implemented that within my own household. At the same token, as discussed in the past, I feel that this agendized item is faulty in that you're not really comparing apples to apples. I think it is unfair to penalize people who have larger properties, maybe more people living within their home. And I understand about tickets being given for wasting water, washing their driveways, et cetera, et cetera. At the same token, I don't think this initiative is comprehensive enough to make it fair for all citizens living in Los Angeles who are making measures to conserve water.
So we have put in place the water use analysis that we talked about when we actually go and look at take into consideration, so it is fair across the board for all our customers. We take into consideration the climate that the property is located. We take the size of the property, the number of people in the property. So all this will be considered, and any additional special water uses that property requires. All that is going to be considered when we do our water use analysis. And then if it's deemed that the water use at this property, and it's not just large properties, but any property that falls into requiring us to take a second look at them, if it comes up that they are using water unreasonably, then we would do a boots on the ground or an in-person site visit And that site visit would take into account all their watering needs. And again, it would be with working with the customer, talking to the customer about what their water needs are, something that we might not see, but we would do an indoor and an outdoor site inspection and survey. And then we'd come up with methods to help this customer. Some of the ones that we've already done, we've already communicated to about 50 different customers that have responded to our 1% letters that went out earlier. And what we found is a lot of customers had leaks they didn't know about. So it's given us an opportunity to highlight some waste that's going on at the customer's property and to save them some money that they wouldn't otherwise have known about, and they would have continued paying high bills.
I'm a total proponent of that, and again, I'm a proponent of water conservation. At the same token, having read this agendized item for a motion, I don't feel that the statements that you're making hypothetically are properly outlined in what is being approved today.
So what's before you today is what's required to go into an ordinance document. What will be coming back to this board for your approval is the methodology and criteria to do the water use analysis and what's going to be put into the water conservation plan. It's very similar to what your board approved during a past ordinance amendment where we approved a variance to be put into place in the ordinance, and then the board was instructed to come back, or the department was instructed to come back to the board with the forms and the criteria to implement and implement that whole variance process. So your board will take another look at the details of the water use analysis and the water conservation plan that's going to be prepared. So we'll have forms and criteria laid out specifically for you to look at and approve.
When would you be coming back?
Well, if this goes through and gets approved, we're hoping to get back to you within the next 45, 60 days.
Yeah, so what would happen is while this would go through the council process of approval, we would develop these guidelines. And the reason we left that for the board is that, as we know, it's a lot of work to change the actual ordinance. And we use state standards. So there's a state standard now by Department of Water Resources for indoor water use. There's model landscape water ordinance. These standards are improved and changed over time with the state as we learn more about the drought and about how to properly irrigate, and new technologies arrive on the market. And so it's much easier to have the board always keep us up to date with how to enforce this and to use the latest standards than try to change the ordinance. So that would be going concurrently while it's going through the council process, so that if this is approved by the council as the new ordinance, we'll have all the approved objective tools in place. And so the reason we're doing this, and it is a certain amount of effort for the staff, but as opposed to other places in the state, a couple of the cities have put a cutoff at a certain number of billing units, and after that billing unit, then it's a fine. But we do recognize that there's a lot of different situations here, a number of large properties. It doesn't necessarily mean that a large property is using water unreasonably. We need to look at that and do a custom water budget for those people, because we look at the mega user, and as soon as we engage with that person, the highest user in the city, we saw results. We saw a tremendous drop in their water usage by engaging with them and pointing out where they weren't following the ordinance. So the goal is not to find people. The goal is to change behavior and get people to all do their fair share when it comes to saving water. But certainly we need something for someone who says, my water bill is not that big compared to every other bill I have in my life. I want to have what I want to have, and I'm willing to pay for it. We need something that has some teeth in it that allows us to address unreasonable usage.
I have a question. How many accounts would you say are unreasonable that you're looking at?
At this time, based on and of course we haven't seen the fourth tier, the tiers hit yet, we expect that as many as 8% of our customers might at some point go into Tier 4. We don't know how many will be chronically in Tier 4 where they're always Tier 4 customers.
So 8% represents how many?
So that could be, was it 48?
No, I think it's closer to about 40,000.
40,000 potentially.
Customers.
And now that's people who might hit Tier 4 a month or two in the summertime. So this is really targeted at people who are always going to be in Tier 4 year-round. And we would ask the board in the direction is that we would start at the highest users and work our way down. There's only so much we can handle physically at one time. And I think the interest has been to look at those highest water-using customers and to work our way down. And the goal, of course, is that if the customers, first we want to make sure if their water use is reasonable or not. And if it's not reasonable, we give them a budget, they live within their budget, then they're doing exactly what we ask them to do.
And they have 2 warning letters? Is that right? 2 letters
currently, that's for the prohibitive uses. So currently, we give there's an official warning before we ever issue a fine. In this case, this would put someone in a pool that could trigger an audit. And then once there's an audit, there's a process to go through before, and then a period of time to comply before we'd ever actually issue a fine.
All right, so when you determine that someone is using excessive amounts, unreasonable amounts of water, is that over a period of time, like a whole year or a quarter, or how do you determine that figure?
We would look at monthly water use, but we'll have to look at history and going into this to set what their water should be. But we would be looking at their monthly water use, because it would be a monthly fine. And then there are also provisions that if someone has high monthly use and they don't change it as a half a year goes by and there's no correction, then it would ratchet up, so that there's some incentive to make the changes. But what we would be asking of people is not unreasonable. There's plenty of water to be used properly that would be allowed in an audit. And part of this is to verify whether some of these that just have high numbers are really good numbers or bad numbers.
Well, someone living in a hotter climate in LA and uses a lot of water, let's say for 2 or 3 months in the summer, would they be then put on this list?
They would be very unlikely to ever get reached. They may be flagged as a Tier 4 customer, but if they're not always in Tier 4, because a lot of people might kick into it for a month or two, the chance of them being an excessive user is very, very slim. So this is going to really target people who are, because our largest lot size in the rate tiers is 1 acre. And so the first thing is going to hit is the properties that are much larger than that use a lot of water all the time. And the question is, are they using water properly or not?
So you're really looking at people who are on more than an acre or more.
The top 1% letters, there's a lot of people that are probably about an acre property, but this will be really a fraction of that I think that we're going to see.
Well, today's LA Times had an article about an unreasonable use of water, and that he was using 27,000 gallons of water a day. And I can't even imagine how do you use that much water?
Well, that's the question. And you know what happens? There are some very large properties in the city, and we don't see them because most of them have high hedges or walls around them. And one of the questions, if you have multiple acres, I hate to say Bel Air, but that's where a lot of the highest uses are. And if you have 8 acres in Bel Air, it could be 8 landscaped acres. It could be 2 landscaped acres and 6 acres of hillsides and ravines and everything around it, because we know there's no flat ground out in that area.
Well, I was wondering if this person had an almond grove in the backyard.
Right, so we want to get in there and find out what the uses are and find out if they're reasonable or not reasonable, and give them a proper water budget. And so the problem is there's not a good one-size-fits-all for us. And so we really need to look to flag people and say, based on if you got flagged, working our way down from the highest users, assess whether their use makes sense or not, and give them a budget to live within, and then we'll have a fair, objective measure to judge them by.
Okay, thank you.
I had a couple of comments and a question. At the signing of ED 5, the mayor said that we are going to have to change our relationship to water, and I think that I take it to heart the importance of conservation, and so long as these ordinances are fairly drawn up and they're implemented fairly, I can't help but escape another article that I read about how Beverly Hills, after they made their large users public, their water went down. And so I don't know if that's just a function of Beverly Hills or if that is a function of more affluent areas in the city. I'd be interested in knowing from the ratepayer advocate if that's just an anomaly by Beverly Hills, or if it's something that you've seen throughout the state, where in terms of getting movement on the water conservation issue. But I think that it's important. I support it, and I hope that things move forward as quickly as possible on this.
Drought shaming throughout the state has been effective, but at a substantial social cost.
I'm sorry, can you repeat what you just said?
Throughout the state, where drought shaming has been used.
Drought shaming.
Drought
Such as-
shaming.
Such as these penalties or public announcement of high users. It's been effective, but at a high social cost.
So is there some, should it just not be done, or is there any metric or performance standard that people judge from the last drought, what worked and what didn't, and whether the social costs outweigh the benefits of the water conservation?
We would have to work to summarize that on a case-by-case basis for you. May we get back to you on that?
Yeah.
If I could add to that, so one thing we're not doing is proposing drought shaming in this. And so, the only way that our customers' information is released is if they actually receive a monetary fine. So someone who's received a fine currently for prohibitive uses could be released already. It's almost like a ticket. So in this case, we work a water budget. We ask people to comply unless someone goes to that, is already a Tier 4 user, goes to the audit process, and has a water budget that fairly and objectively sets an amount of water that they should be using on their property, and then violates it. That would be the only time that their name could be, we're not going to push names out, but someone could ask for who's received fines.
So this is more of a recalcitrant type of thing.
Exactly.
So it's really not targeted for just high users per se, just because they're high users.
Right. And Dr. Stephanie Pincel from UCLA, they did a study of water use. And you mentioned about affluence, and one of the results was that more water is used in affluent areas. The question that's not answered is it because those people have larger lots or larger landscapes, or because they have a different attitude. And so this is not addressed to punish people who have a larger property or landscape that needs to be taken care of. But it is meant to address people who maybe don't have the attitude that they believe they should conserve.
And I will object to that comment in that we discussed this last month at the last board meeting. The department stated that they do not have the technology nor the information to truly outline these amendments on a fair and unbiased methodology. And so you are targeting people who consume the most water, but I think by you adding that, it's their attitude, I totally disagree. I'll reference Commissioner Jill Barank. She was chastised because she grew fruit trees. It's like, why should a family who's conscientious, who is giving back to the community, who is conserving water, perhaps on a drip irrigation method, be chastised and potentially be ostracized by the public if they receive a ticket? So last month I was told by the department that you do not have the information or technology to make this fair to all citizens living in Los Angeles. And I don't think it's about attitude.
Okay. So two things. So first of all, in terms of the example, if someone is irrigating properly and this and that, they will have a water budget that allows for all that. And so, and I know everyone on the board has cut back their water use tremendously. And so that is the exact kind of thing that we want to recognize by doing a water budget that's individualized, is that it's made to account for the water you properly need on your property. That when I say attitude, I'm thinking of someone who maybe has a large property. A lot of these folks don't even live in Los Angeles, but they maintain large properties here. And they sometimes have large landscape staffs, and sometimes the landscapes are extensive. And money may not be an object to those people. And so there's no driver to get to change behavior or an avenue to get on their property to say, let us look at what you're doing and help you make corrections. And so that's the attitude. I didn't mean to insinuate anything. And certainly this board has had a tremendous attitude about water conservation. And it's shown. It's shown in everyone's water bills. In terms of the technology, when I talked before about not having technology, that was to look at if we were to use kind of blanket technology and do an individual, kind of remotely do an individual water budget for every property in the city, where we'd have to look at lot size and landscape. There are some communities that have done some major LIDAR and radar studies and looked at how much lawn people have. But in a community the size of Los Angeles, it'd be very unwieldy to do that. So what we are doing, we do have the technology to apply on a personal basis all the current standards, all the current thinking in the state of California for what water use should be when it's used efficiently. And so we would use that technology. It'll be applied directly by staff and on a personalized basis to make sure that everyone's treated fairly in their own condition.
I have a couple more questions. We talked about the names of the people who are unreasonable use of water. Is this list accessible by Public Records Act? Can someone ask newspapers or media, ask for this list?
Yeah, only if they receive a monetary fine. So that means if they don't comply and don't fall in with the recommendations in their water conservation plan. So, and people will be given a reasonable amount of time to make corrections. So it's going to be on a case-by-case basis, because some customers, they might need to reline a pool or a pond or something.
Well, I was never fined.
No.
Then your name should never be released.
But the media called me about my water use.
Commissioner, for clarification, the reason your information would have been disclosed was because you serve as a member of this commission. A general member of the public who is not in your position would not have had their information disclosed.
Okay, so because of our civic responsibility, we're on a list.
We all have the pleasure of being on some websites,
Yeah, that's pleasure. The other thing, Marty, you mentioned about a water budget.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone, like myself, I have fruit trees and I grow vegetables, will there be then kind of an individualized water budget? Or is that going to be part of my water use, irrigating fruit trees and vegetables?
Yeah, the answer is there would be, and I don't even know I don't believe you'd even qualify for this, so this is, I don't think you're that high a user, but I'll let me answer exactly.
But yes, and that's the purpose of doing the water use analysis. It's identifying what currently does the property have. What kind of landscape does it have? What kind of plants does it have? The needs of the water needs of those plants. And that will all be taken into consideration. It's not that you're going to get a budget for California-friendly landscaping when you've got a tree to take care of.
But
so it will go into your budget.
Is this water budget available to everyone or only to the unreasonable users?
The ability to get a special water use analysis, that per what we've been talking about in the ordinance, it would be required if you were deemed an unreasonable use after we did a desktop analysis. Now, if we have any customer, and we do have customers that contact us from time to time and say, you know, my water bill's really high, and it's jumped up, and I don't know what's going on. Can somebody come out and take a look at my property? And we send staff out to take a look, and a lot of times it might be a bad toilet leak or an irrigation leak that the customer wasn't aware of.
Right. So we could use these tools for anyone if they want to, but we would only do this as a second step of a two-step process if someone flags as an extremely high water user.
Okay, well, I think that's important for people to know that.
Other comments, other questions? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second? Those
Second.
in favor? Aye. Those opposed?
I'm opposed. I feel that the amendments need to be refined. I feel currently they're tainted, biased, and not accurately targeting water wasters.
So Barbara, in support, Commissioner Newman opposed?
Okay.
And you have her comments?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Item 20, transmittal of preliminary fiscal year 2016-17 LA DWP budget to the LA City Council.
So this is the preliminary budget. Neil Guglielmo and Marianne Ann's have a brief presentation. Just a couple of comments. One, it's very critical as we go forward that we stay in line with our 5-year financial plan. That was part of the rate action. This is especially critical for the O&M. This is the preliminary budget, so we'll be back to the board. We're continuing to work on these numbers, but we'll be back to the board within 2 months in May for approval of the final budget. And with that, Neil and Marianne have a brief presentation.
Good morning, Commissioners. As Jeff said just a few moments ago, we have successfully gotten approval of the proposed rate actions, and those new revenues are reflected within the preliminary budget. Just a couple numbers to throw out there for you as we start the presentation. The power system budget for fiscal year 16-17, the preliminary budget, totals $4.47 billion, which is net of receipts. The water system budget totals $1.93 billion net of receipts, and the additional revenues for water are roughly $164 million, and for power, roughly $246 million. So those revenues are invested towards infrastructure reliability, our compliance with the regulatory mandates, and improving customer service, which was our high priority items for the rate action. And I'll go and get started with the presentation. As was indicated previously, we have had quite a few meetings with the public on the proposed rates. And those meetings resulted in a lot of great feedback from the public and some rate design changes as well that were implemented. Some of the items we had were, again, infrastructure was a key priority, protecting against the drought and protecting our most vulnerable populations from higher rates. The goal of the preliminary budget for fiscal year 16-17 is to be consistent with the approved rates and financial plan, so living within the financial planning targets, addressing our customer-driven priorities, and again, continue to emphasize cost control and fiscal discipline. We do align with the mayor's priority outcome areas. Mayor Garcetti has 4 priority outcome areas, and some of our highlighted items reflect, again, providing excellent customer service, competitive rates, investments in infrastructure, transition to more sustainable water and power supplies, increasing reliability in our system, compliance with mandates, and again, supporting the local economy and jobs. Our status. So this is our preliminary budget to comply with the charter. We have to transmit by the end of this month a preliminary budget to the mayor and the city council, and then we have to transmit our final budget prior to the end of May. We're going to go over some slides now on the accomplishments. We also have the actual budget development, key expenditure plans, and some next steps. So now we're going to turn towards the power system accomplishments.
So a couple I'd like to point out here on the bottom left. That represents the groundbreaking for the renewable projects. And just a couple of months ago, they had the groundbreaking. Literally now on Springbok 1, 60% of the panels are in. On Springbok 2, approximately 40% of the panels are in. So we are seeing solar being developed in an enormous way out near Barron Ridge. So if we build it, they will come, and this is really exciting because the renewables program is happening. And then on the right, I wanted to point out that the significant work related to our generation to make it more nimble to get off ocean water cooling, it's happening. So this project was started up on time, and we're working on the next phase of this project. So we're rebuilding our infrastructure to be more nimble to integrate our renewables program and at the same time get off ocean water cooling. And then our core business is continuing and will be ramped up. So what you see here is the core infrastructure, our energy efficiency programs that we're doing with our direct installs, as well as all the other energy efficiency, our transformer replacements, and our line work. And so we are ramping up those contracts so that we can deploy our programs as we told and promised the council we would deploy those programs.
And now we're going to turn to the water accomplishments.
So on the slides there, on this first page of slides, at the top, the bottom, middle left, is the earthquake-resistant pipe. This is a new program we're doing. We actually, much to the surprise of the Japanese firms who have been putting this in for decades, they recognize that we've had the fastest installation ever recorded in the world of earthquake-resistant pipe, which is a testimony to our crew and their ability to take on new technologies and implement them quickly and efficiently. We also are on target right now to replace our 150,000 feet of distribution main this year, and we are actively working in the bottom of the Silver Lake Reservoir. The reservoir does not look like that now. It's all dry, and the bypass line that will complete the Silver Lake Water Quality Improvement Program is being constructed at this time. Also, we have our stormwater capture master plan. We celebrated that here at the board. I remember everybody giving me a hard time for bringing the trophy. And that continues to be recognized widely as a good blueprint that others are looking to copy to help us to capture more stormwater and maximize our local water resources. We have increased our use of recycled water. Hanson Golf Course took us to close to 80% for recycled water for golf courses throughout the city. The mayor's goal was 85%, and we're hoping to actually exceed that. And then water conservation, the city's done a tremendous job in water conservation. We started the ED5 with 131 gallons per person per day. We actually were targeting to be 111 by January 1st, when we got down to about 106, 107. So we're doing a tremendous job in water conservation. And importantly with this is that we are looking at those water conservation numbers and factoring them into the budget so that we correctly have good expectations of what the water sales and the revenue requirements will be.
Thank you very much. So now we're going to go into the actual development itself. As I mentioned earlier, we are working on this, the preliminary budget. We're still working towards our final budget, which will be coming back to you in May. The budget does reflect all the major goals we've been sharing with our customers through the rates process. We also have the addition of financial metrics that were added as part of our approved power and water ordinances. And a number of those are a comparative of the budget to actuals. We're reporting those to your board as well as to the RPA on a regular basis moving forward. So obviously it's very important for us to ensure that we're in alignment. And as we know, projects will change over time. But those are some major elements or changes we've seen for the preliminary budget. And like I said, we'll be coming back to you in May. We have just a few slides now to go over more specifically the highlights for power and then water. You'll see there the actual expenditures in fiscal year 14-15, our current year approved budget or final budget, as well as our more recent estimates for the fiscal year, and then our proposed or preliminary budget for fiscal year 16-17. As you can see, continuing a high level of capital investment. We're trying to continue to control those O&M costs and increases, and then reflecting the changes we're seeing in terms of renewables and fuel and purchase power. This just describes the various key programs that we have in the coming slides. So this is a graphical way of showing you our planned capital investments. Again, our 14-15 expenditures, that $1.26 billion. The approved 15-16 budget, we're going to fall a little bit less than that on the power side, roughly $14.05. And then as we look towards 16-17 and ramp up those contracts and those crews, we're looking at roughly investments of $1.5 billion. You can see it stacks based on the reliability program, which is the orange. You can see the also power supply, which is the green. The red being operating support, customer service. You can see that increasing at the bottom as well. Oh, and I probably should highlight the significant improvements or investments in the customer opportunities programs and energy efficiency, which is the top left. O&M, that looks pretty flat to me. Our objective is to meet the system requirements that we have, meaning those operating requirements, in the most cost-effective and efficient manner. And so we're really trying to control those O&M expenses. We do see some changes in terms of the power supply replacement towards the bottom and the reliability program also increasing. Fuel and purchase power, you can see that renewables are taking up a larger portion of that budget as we move from the approved budget in 15-16, roughly 1.5 to almost 1.5 again in 16-17. That renewables is one of the larger portions that's growing the fastest. Natural gas remains fairly constant. And then you can see the coal and nuclear is decreasing. Turn towards the broad revenue fund now. Again, some high-level observations that capital investment from the 14-15 actual expenditures is $734. It's the proposed level of over $1 billion in capital investment for water, very critical for that infrastructure. You'll see there also some controlled increases in our various operating expense lines. Again, the highlights, the key programs. So graphically for capital, what you can see there is definitely continued investment in infrastructure. Expenditures of roughly $720 in 14-15. The current year's estimate, $959, and then proposed for next year of over $1 billion, again, in investments. Operations maintenance will increase as we put more pipes in. We still have a lot of pipe that is aging, so that O&M will continue to be increasing as we go forward. You'll see there the water infrastructure program, that blue on the very top, very key for us. Safe drinking water continues at roughly the same expenditure levels. Customer service is increasing, and we'll see some changes in our Owens Valley as well going forward. purchase water prices projecting to go down. Again, we're assuming that we're returning to normal water year. As of February 1st, we had some good news that the Eastern Sierra snowpack was 97%. Hopefully, we're going to be higher than that soon, or I think Marty's got his snow dance, not the rain dance, coming, so we'll be able to enjoy that soon. And then really the next steps for us, really to request your approval to transmit the preliminary budgets for both water and power revenue funds to the City Council and the Mayor. And then to come back to you in May. We're going to continue to work with our operating organizations to refine the budget numbers and ensure that we are within the financial plan targets that were presented to you and approved as part of the rate action. And we're happy to answer any questions you have.
Questions, comments?
Yeah, I think tied into this, I'm surprised that General Manager Marcy Edwards, who is very, very keen on keeping our board apprised of events going on within our neighborhoods. I don't know if I was the only commissioner to not receive updates on the major electric outage that occurred a couple of days ago, affecting like 12 neighborhoods. And so I think it's appropriate to hear from you as to why that transpired and how this interacts with this agendized item.
We do experience a variety of outages, and usually at a certain threshold, I will forward them to the commissioners, or else you would get a significant number of emails. I may have missed that one. Mike, are you familiar with?
This was a major outage.
I'm not prepared to comment on that. I just don't know the details.
Okay. We, I went online because our power went out, and it seemed as if 12 surrounding neighborhoods also experienced electrical outages. And
usually if it's that large, it'll be like a distributing station outage itself, or maybe a section in one of the major receiving stations. But to make the connection, you're absolutely right. The main focus of the investment on the power side is into infrastructure in an effort to try to reduce our outages. I'll get you details on that one in specific. My apologies.
Okay. I was surprised that 12 neighborhoods would be affected in such a severe manner.
And Neil, if you could just go to page 13 real quick, just on that. Commissioner, if you look at the capital, the power system reliability, where we had in 14-15 actuals of 318, and then you can see the spending for 15-16, 16-17 is up near the 500 million. That is the intent, and as we move forward, is to spend more money on those infrastructure programs to hopefully avoid that.
Other comments or Dr. Pickle?
This preliminary budget shows the budget on a fund basis, and there are two funds, water and power, as there are two sets of rates, but there are three divisions: water, power, and joint. Joint, in terms of head count and dollars, is nearly as big as power. So in the final budget, as has been done in the past 2 years, I think it's important to break out joint and examine the joint budget carefully and distinctly, because it is where we've had a number of our challenges in IT and customer service and security and other areas. So we'll be working with the FSO and budget team to make sure that's elucidated in a way that's useful for you.
Good. That will be helpful. Thank you. Other questions, other comments? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? It's passed. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Item 21.
So this is the energy cost adjustment factor that will begin effective April 1st. This will actually decrease the bill. So because of natural gas prices dropping, the ECAF has gone down. Again, Neil has a brief presentation should you be so inclined, or we can answer any questions. Again, it's good news. It's going down.
We like good news. See if you can do that every time. Questions? Is there a motion? Second. Those in favor? Aye. It's nice presentation.
Thank you.
And now Neil
Oh, wait,
goes.
Dr. Pickle, I'm sorry, I know you wanted to comment on 20.
I can make my comment apply to both 21 and 22.
So I'll just call for 22, which is estimated water supply cost, water quality improvement, Owens Valley regulatory and water infrastructure expenditures for July 1st, 16 to June 30th, 17. Dr. Pickle.
We're still working with the FSO staff to establish a set of 5-year baseline numbers out of the rate case to compare to each of these. We still have some work to do to settle out on mutual understanding and agreement as to the numbers. Certainly we aren't going to argue about decreases in these factors, but it's useful to have this as a baseline for metric comparison over the 5-year period.
Good, thank you.
So item 22, this is the new structure of the water supply costs, which is consistent with the rate action that the board has approved and was finally approved yesterday and will go into effect on April 15th. So this is consistent with Proposition 218 and all of the design that we've done really over the course of pretty close to the last year and a half. So with that, I'll let Neil and Ben Trong give the presentation on this.
Thank you, Jeff. All right, so I'll turn our attention to the graphic there on the right-hand side. Again, this is looking at the revenues for July 1st, 2016 through June 30th, 2017, the expenditures. You'll see there the requires board approval, our various metrics, then we have some automatic passive adjustment factors as well. The water supply cost adjustment factor, which replaces the purchase water charge, provides roughly 27% of retail revenue in 16-17. Additional adjustment factors include water quality, water infrastructure, Owens Valley regulatory, which provide roughly 30% of the retail revenues. And then you'll see the other passive adjustment charges or components that are fully automatic include the base rate revenue target adjustment, low-income subsidy and such, makes up roughly 6%, and the base revenues make up another 37% for the total retail revenue for the department for water. These numbers over here, which I love numbers, by the way, but represents the bill impacts looking at the different adjustment factors. Again, assuming a residential customer, typical customer, roughly consumption of 12 HCF per month. And you'll see the numbers that are shown down below, both the factors requiring board approval and those that are automatic adjusted. And this is really the graphic to show. What you'll see is that we're moving up from the April 16 numbers of roughly 55, 56 to the projected for July 16, which is the 62.16. Now, if you compare that to July of 2015, we're a little over 3% of an increase from the 60.16 in July of 2015 to the July of 2016. And that reflects a number of changes, but also reflects the changes in the approved rates. So we have changed the stacking and the colors a little bit. I think it's a little hard to make out in the PowerPoint presentation. I apologize. The lightly shaded blue at the very top, or blue-gray, is that water supply adjustment. The next item down is that Owens Valley, then water expense stabilization, base rate target, and the Tier 1 base is at the very bottom there.
And it's important that the customers don't see all those different.
Correct.
They just see a price per HCF. So it's simpler. Well, it's clearly in this board package, but for customer simplicity, they just see what the price is per HCF.
Per HCF. So what does that mean in terms of, as we look ahead in terms of those rates? We did show that from July of last year to July of this year, the change is roughly 3%. As we look forward, though, you'll see the rates will actually decrease both for Tier 1 and Tier 2 going forward. That Tier 1, which is the bottom line, let's see if I have if you can barely make out the light there. So that Tier 1 is going to go down and will remain below where we have been in the past. The Tier 2 is going to go down, remain flat, and then we'll start to increase. Down at the bottom, see these are every 6 months. These are a semi-annually adjusted charge, the water supply cost adjustment factor. But essentially, It's not until we're getting into years 4, really, and 5 where we start to see increases. So while it's going up initially, it will come down a bit, the rates both for Tier 1 and Tier 2 for our typical residential customers.
Excuse me, Neil, how much is it going up for Tier 1?
Tier 1, it's previous page. That's the cost, but wasn't the change that? Tier 2. We'll get back to you in just a second. We're looking at the
No, I just remember it being like this short-term spike and then it comes down.
Right.
It's
Correct.
like 10% or about that?
Yeah, it is a short-term spike, and then it comes back down, and that's what Neil's showing
The
there.
lines there.
Is the water supply cost adjustment. So that drops down. Again, it depends on snowpack to the extent, right now, as Marty's given us this highly technical assessment. The hand waving. Right now, it looks like we're somewhere close to 100% snowpack, and that's what these numbers are based on.
I apologize. We'll have to get back to you on the exact change in the numbers. What we have in the packages is the proposed number going forward. The next slide, let me see, back here, shows the stacked the price per HCF. You'll see the Tier 1 price per HCF is that $4.61 roughly. That Tier 2 is $6.31, 32 cents. Tier 3 is that $7.19. Tier 4, roughly the same as Tier 3, is again $7.19. And they're stacked the same, and the colors are consistent with what we're showing over here, so in case you want to refer back. So that shows you the pricing effective for July 1st, 2016. And we'll go back and pull the numbers. Do you have it?
Yeah, just get it later.
The background, again, this is the 12-month expenditure period, July 1st through June 30th. This describes here the various adjustment factors that we have: water supply, water quality improvement, Owens, and then, of course, the new water infrastructure adjustment factor as well. And that concludes the presentation.
Questions or comments?
I do have one comment, and that is it's as much with the cost adjustment as it is with the spike in the temporary increase in the water rates, is that a good percentage of our city, 40 or 50% of the residents, live at or below 200% of the poverty line, and I would like to ask that we redouble our outreach efforts to reach out and touch those people who live in those census tracts or zip codes, however you want to define it, because this is the part, I think, of the rate increase that we want to just avoid the shock with. There has to be a message we can convey that it's just short term, that it's part, and we need to remind people, I think, in those neighborhoods of a lot of the benefits of where this is going. It's going to increase the infrastructure in their neighborhoods. It's going to help energy efficiency programs like a lot of the ones being led by Nancy Sutley and General Manager Edwards that directly benefit a lot of these neighborhoods disproportionately because the rebates make up a disproportionate amount of their income compared to more affluent areas. So I would say that to the extent that you can, Neil, try to reach out. I think that Nancy and Keisha and others have kind of a list of community leaders that I've passed along. If you can just be sure that they get, a few messages over the next, not just one, but a few over the next 6 or 8 weeks, I think it'll go a long way toward any after sales effect of. And I think it'll show them that we're committed for the long term, and we weren't just doing the outreach to get the rate increase done. We were doing it because we have the long-term interests of the ratepayers at heart and with us.
You know, absolutely. And I know that we've already started meeting this week, again, with communications and customer service on how to message and get the information out to the public. We're expecting we'll get a lot of questions from our customers about the changes in the rates that have recently gone forward. And so we'll be working with Nancy and her staff as well to help get that word out as extensively as possible.
I'd like to specifically ask that we get communications out before these bills go out, is what I'd like to ask for.
Okay.
Because, and that's not just, by the way, in South Central, South LA, East LA, or Northeast LA. There are other parts of the city that are less served and have those, they don't have the capacity to keep up with a lot of this stuff, and many of them may not even know that, you know, the rate increase has happened. So but they'll see it, and they will notice a $5 or $10 increase if that's what it is. And I just want to make sure that we can at least say that we tried and made more than just best efforts to notify them. Thanks.
No problem.
And thanks for, by the way, thanks for the presentation. I think it's comprehensive, and the work that you and the staff have done is really exemplary. Thanks.
Thanks, sir.
I appreciate Vice President Thunderbrook's comments, and I feel that as Angelinos at large, I think we want to better our city. We want to better our city. There's always been an understanding that, you know, people who live in larger homes will subsidize those in lower socioeconomic neighborhoods. At the same token, I just want to reiterate my comments from before, in that I would like the tier system to be based on a more fair basis. I think education's key, and I think it's important to advise owners of larger properties how to better navigate their water conservation methods. But at the same token, I'll defend these citizens in that I don't feel that they should be ostracized. And it's one thing to subsidize, it's another thing to educate, it's another thing to penalize.
Other comments, other questions? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimously approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Item 23, initial authorization to issue up to $428 million of power system revenue bonds under resolution number 4907. Underscore initial authorization.
Initial, right. So this is something that now that we have secured the rates, you will see a lot of these to issue bonds. This is the initial authorization on the power side for $428 million. With securing the rate proposal, we have a great story to tell on the credit side. This will come back to the board. This initial authorization is for $428 million of new money to support the capital programs. The plan going forward, we have planned about $1.5 billion a year in bond issues. Because of the size of these bond issues, it's really going to be 4 issues a year, 2 on each side, 2 on water, 2 on power. This is the power side, and you'll see the subsequent authorization for the water one is the next item. And Peter Wynn is here to answer any questions.
Any questions from commissioners? Dr. Pickle? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Those in favor? Aye. It's approved.
So the next item is for $647 million of water system revenue bonds. This is broken up in 3 pieces. One is $200 million of new money, which will support the capital program. $250 million to repay the revolving line of credit, which we utilized prior to getting the rate action. And then we have $197 million of refunded bonds, which will save on a net present value about $41 million. So again, we've already had the initial authorization for this. This is our plan to go out and issue these bonds actually within the next 4 to 6 weeks. And we're in process of doing that right now.
So this one is not initial.
This is not initial. We are going to go out and issue these bonds. Yeah.
Questions? Motion? Second? Those in
Second.
favor? Aye. It's approved.
Good presentation, Peter, thank you.
Thank you.
Those are among the best. Filed items, monthly reports, water system, October.
I have nothing, unless there's, well, actually, there's one thing unless there's questions.
Besides your, this.
Yeah, besides this. Let me explain this. So as of, every day that it doesn't follow normal weather patterns, the percents change. And at the last board meeting, we were sitting at normal, and then we had some dry weather. And so where we are right now, as of this morning, is Mammoth. We have another storm or two just north of us that should be coming our way. Mammoth snowpack's kind of the graph we always see, should roll in right about normal. The rest of the eastern Sierra is below, and so we're expecting right now our April 1st snow survey would be somewhere around 75% of normal. Now, the difficult thing is that there's going to be carryover probably because we're expecting a kind of late El Nino months, and technically that gets into the next water year. Every time the state deals with this, there's always a confusion as to which water year are we talking about. So we do expect more, we hope for more snow to fall. All of that will contribute toward more aqueduct supply for us. But we keep an eye on the weather on a regular basis. The rest of the state is doing a little better than us, but we hope that we'll have continued snows throughout the rest of this month and in
How
April
late
and May.
do we expect El Nino?
The latest I've heard is April, May, maybe even early June. But that's what we expected January, February, March. So.
And is that the end of it, or is there a tail for the following year?
I think, well, that I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't know what the projections are for the ocean cooling back off. But for this current winter, we could see kind of this late winter effect. So that and if you look at the patterns of the wettest years, they've always been wet late. So there's still some hope.
Questions of Dr. Adams? We move to financial services, January 2016.
I think we deferred that to the next board meeting.
Okay, I think you're right. Groundwater development opportunities.
So I'd like to have Greg Reed come up. He manages our groundwater policy group. Commissioner Funderburk asked specifically about what our groundwater opportunities were, particularly we always talk about San Fernando Valley, but we have a lot of other groundwater. We have 8 basins that we pump from, and we have a lot of rights in the central and west basin, primarily central basin. And so this is to respond to that, to let the board know what our opportunities are. We've been buying groundwater rights with your approvals several times now to increase our local water capabilities. So Greg will provide some detail about what we have looking for us, for the future.
Good morning, good morning, President Levine and Commissioners. My name is Greg Reed, and I'm joined with my colleague Christopher Repp, and we're here to speak on the topic that Marty just mentioned and Commissioner Funderburk had asked about, which is the changes that have recently been enacted for the Central Basin Groundwater Water Rights Judgment. So we're going to brief you on a few topics here, and I have a PowerPoint here, about 10-minute PowerPoint to go through. And we'll be talking with you today about the actual amended judgment and the changes that have been put into place and the groundwater development opportunities that are created by the changes and also the challenges that are associated with that. And what I hope to give you a sense of is, the actual opportunities that we have for developing new groundwater supplies for the city. So focusing on the amended judgment, the West Coast Basin and the Central Basin were originally adjudicated in the 80s when a water master was established and pumping rights were limited to stop the decline in the water table and to stop seawater intrusion. Recently, the court approved changes to the water rights judgment, and there were 3 important changes that came as a result. The first change was the opportunity to transfer water rights. And so we could now transfer our West Coast Basin water rights using our well fields in the Central Basin. And that's a huge plus for us because we have been unable to use our water rights in West Coast Basin since 1980. The second change is in the area of storage. The new judgment allows for unused groundwater to be stored within the basin for use during future years. That gives us added flexibility in our pumping operations. And then finally, the new judgment provides opportunities for augmenting these 2 basins with new water supplies. And so that's huge. That provides us an opportunity to replenish the basins, and increase our pumping yields as a result. So we're going to talk more about these opportunities. So first, the question is, how can we take advantage of these new opportunities? First, we can acquire more water rights and store unused water in the ground. And as Marty mentioned, this board has approved 3 transactions purchasing new water rights, increasing the city's water rights by 2,200 acre feet. That's an increase of 15%. That's more local water that we can use and serve to our customers. We are also taking advantage of the amended judgment in the area of storing water. We have stored more than 11,000 acre feet of water to date, and we have an opportunity to store as much as 34,000, twice our annual adjudication for future use. So these efforts are positive steps towards providing more local supplies for our customers.
Are you using stormwater to store it, or is it recycled water, or what?
Well, we're storing unused groundwater. So the city has an entitlement to pump a certain amount. It was originally 15,000 in the judgment. This board, through the purchases we've approved, we're now able to pump as much as 17,200 acre feet per year. But we're not pumping that today. So the unused groundwater that we're entitled to, we're able to store that in the groundwater basin and access that groundwater in the future. And that was not provided for before this judgment change went into effect.
And it accumulates over time? So
it accumulates, right. And there is a maximum. The maximum is 2 times our adjudicated amount.
So that would be 34,000?
Roughly. Okay. Yeah, about 34,000. Right. So the next thing we need to do, so it's great that this board has approved water rights purchases. And as I mentioned, we're taking advantage of the storage provision. The next thing we need to do is increase our pumping capacity. And that starts with maintaining our existing wells to make sure that the pumping capacity is optimal over time. The second thing is to replace our old and deteriorating wells. And we are actually doing that. We have recently drilled 4 replacement wells at our Manhattan well field. And by the way, the state has awarded $3 million in grant funds to LADWP to help expedite that particular project because of the drought relief benefits that the well drilling will provide.
That's at 99th Street?
That's actually at the Manhattan well field.
And what street is that?
Manhattan well field is located near the intersection of Western Avenue and Gage Street.
And Gage. So around 50th Street or?
Right. It's actually on Manhattan Place, just north of Gage Avenue, west of Western Avenue. Okay, so we are replacing our older wells. And finally, we're also in the early stages of planning for new well fields in Central Basin. We have 2 well fields, as Commissioner Funderburk just mentioned. We have the 99th Street well field, and we have the Manhattan well field. We're now in the early stages of planning for a 3rd well field in Central Basin to increase our capacity, and that'll allow us to take advantage of these new opportunities. Now, in order for us to pump more water, we also need to put more water in the ground. And there's a few ways we can do that. So one way is to use the various systems that are depicted on this slide to capture more stormwater and put it into the ground within our local communities. And the added benefit those kind of projects provide is to help add flood protection for our communities, and it also helps improve water quality in our local rivers and streams. The other opportunity we have is to develop high-quality recycled water. And we have a few ways to do that. We can utilize our existing municipal wastewater treatment plants that are operated by LA Sanitation, or MWD has recently announced its partnership with LA County Sanitation, and they're looking to develop a recycled water program where they will take water from the sanitation's Carson plant, process it through advanced treatment, and put that water into Central Basin for others to use. We can potentially participate by buying some of that water from MWD, and we can increase our pumping rights by an equal amount. So that's a great opportunity. The other opportunity we have is to potentially buy some of that water from MWD and deliver it for industrial uses by our refinery customers down in the harbor area. So there's some really great opportunities for local supply. Now this graph depicts our current mix of water supplies, And you can see, at no surprise, we're heavily reliant on MWD imported sources, LA Aqueduct imported sources, and currently our groundwater pumping in Central Basin is less than our adjudicated amount, 10,000 compared to about 17,000. When we consider the mayor's directive to increase our use of locally sourced water to 50%, we know that groundwater can provide a big potential for helping us reach those goals. And Central Basin and West Coast Basin is not excluded from that. Now, there are challenges associated with these opportunities. And the first challenge that we need to deal with is aging infrastructure. I've already talked with you about dealing with our older wells, and we hope that our 4 new wells at Manhattan Wellfield will be online by next year. The next thing we need to look at is our distribution system. Currently, the distribution system has limited capacity to serve groundwater to our customers, and we're working towards a solution for that as well through our planning efforts. It may take some time, but we may need to remodel our distribution system so that we can serve groundwater more broadly to the area across the city.
Excuse me.
Yes.
You focused on kind of south central and southeast LA. There's a significant amount of groundwater recharge that's going on in the valley, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and San Fernando has been the primary focus of our efforts for obvious reasons, because the city's major water rights are located in the valley. That's about 80% of our groundwater resources. But Central Basin also has some opportunities that we can develop as well, and that's what we're here to talk about today. And so here in the Central Basin, our groundwater well fields, because our infrastructure is such that we have a limit to how much groundwater we can serve to our customers, and we need to kind of fix that problem. And we're working on it. Okay, so the next challenge is similar to San Fernando, is groundwater contamination. And this map depicts the numerous locations where environmental pollutants have been released from various sites. This next picture depicts the most high priority locations because they've actually impacted groundwater. They are located near water supply wells and the concentrations that are released from these sites. And so our challenge is to work with our regulatory agencies as we develop water resources in these basins to make sure we take these into account.
Are the concentrations mostly dense, non-aqueous phase liquids, DNAPLs?
Yes.
Okay.
What did you just say?
It's definitely in the groundwater, and as we develop our local supplies, we have to make sure that those contaminants are captured, removed, remediated, and we may have to work closely with our regulators to make sure that's happening. This next picture shows the LA River as it winds its way through downtown Los Angeles and towards our southern boundary. And I think we all know that many look at the LA River as a tremendous resource, both for its scenic beauty as well as the potential for public access and recreation. But it could also be looked at as a potential resource for water supply. In fact, we may consider looking at use of the LA River to help recharge the Central Basin, for example. But those kind of concepts will have its own challenges in the area of having adequate funding to do something like that, or regional coordination with the various interest groups who are looking at the river as a vital resource, making sure that there's good stakeholder buy-in, in other words. The other challenges will be just in the area of technical feasibility and land acquisition and regulatory hurdles as well. I think these challenges could be overcome with the right level of commitment and resources, but we need to recognize what we're looking at. So that concludes our talk as far as the update for the amended judgment. I'd like to leave you with the idea that the amended judgment does provide a framework and an opportunity to recharge these basins and help us develop more local supplies for the city. We do need to increase our pumping capacity in order to take advantage of that. And finally, we're looking at ways to strategize these opportunities through a groundwater development and augmentation plan. So with that, please expect to have more discussions with us about these opportunities. That's it, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
We look forward to it. Other questions or comments? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Nice work.
Thank you.
Water System Project Management Report, which had been deferred from the February 16th board meeting.
So Stephon Tucker is our manager of the Project Management and Construction Management Group for the water system, which is responsible for delivering a large portion of our capital projects. So he will be giving a presentation on how we've been doing that.
Thank you, Susan. Good afternoon, President Levine and members of the board. What we're going to do is we're going to kind of walk you through kind of a high-level evolution of project management in the water system, kind of where we came from and where we are currently. So the evolution of project management started around 2008 in the water system, and the environment was that we had inadequate project reporting, our schedules were not well defined, our capital program was not well executed, as you'll see in some graphs later, and we really had inadequate project oversight. There were situations where we would go to project meetings to discuss detailed information in projects, and different reports had different numbers describing our projects because the numbers were coming from very different sources. So it was in that environment that our director at the time, Mr. Glenn Singley, asked two basic questions. Do we need an enterprise project management system? And should we reorganize into a project management organization? And our answer to him was very definitive. It depends and maybe. Because it depends on whether or not we're willing to commit to setting up the right processes to ensure that consistent information goes into that enterprise system. Because as you've heard the adage, garbage in, garbage out. If we didn't have the right processes set up, we could still have varying information going into the system at various locations. And we said maybe, but only if we're willing to slightly increase our project overhead in order to improve our overall efficiency of project delivery. And Mr. Singley's response to both of those questions was a resounding yes and yes. Yes, we're willing to slightly increase our project overhead, and we are going to commit to improving our processes so that we had good information going into this enterprise system that we were going to develop. So we set out on our process improvement, and it took us about 18 months. One of the first things we did was a gap analysis based on PMBOK knowledge areas. And the PMBOK is the Project Management Body of Knowledge. That's the project management guide that the Project Management Institute puts out on how to properly do project management. So what we did is we kind of gapped ourselves or gauged ourselves as to what we were doing versus what the best practices were in the industry on project management. And there's 10 knowledge areas of scope, schedule, budget, procurement, quality, and the like that we were gauging ourselves against with regard to our current practices versus best practices. We formed project or action teams, and then we visited best practice organizations. And by visiting those best practice organizations, we were able to borrow some of those best practices from those organizations and implement them into our own program so that it can improve our project delivery. We piloted those recommendations, and then we started to refine our process. And we refined our process by literally redefining the various stages of project delivery for the water system and what those meant. Revamped our roles and responsibilities, standardized our procedures, and then most importantly, we developed and implemented a project management office for the water system. That we had not done before, and what that meant to us is that we were now assigning dedicated project managers whose role and responsibility it was to properly manage these projects, rather than trying to go with this dual hat system where the person that designed the project would then try to manage the project throughout its life cycle. Some of the program management best practices that we implemented, of course, P6, which is the software, the enterprise-wide software that we finally implemented, became our budget and scheduling platform. Then the oversight committee we developed, which is a committee of high-level managers that we would meet with on a regular basis through gate meetings that would oversee the progress of our project. Now, the gate meetings were strategically placed meetings throughout the life cycle of the project where we would meet with the oversight committee, the high-level managers in the water system, to check in and approve those projects at every critical stage of that project. Quarterly reviews we also did, and the ratepayer advocate has sat in on many of these gate meetings, or the ratepayer advocate staff sat in on many of these gate meetings, as well as the quarterly review meetings. We developed a project reporter, and we developed an information center, project information center. Now, I said we earlier that we had gone and visited some best practice organizations. Many of these steps we actually borrowed from some of those organizations. The oversight committees, we borrowed from San Diego County Water Authority. The gate meetings, we borrowed from Orange County Sanitation District. Our project reporter came from Eastern Municipal Water District. So we gained those ideas. We came in and we implemented them in the water system.
What did you borrow from Anaheim? Besides our general manager.
Well, since they were part of the Orange County, we can kind of give them a little credit for our gate meetings, I guess.
Okay, I couldn't resist.
I wanted to ask about that, the best practices. How did you decide which organizations to look at?
We kind of tapped the shoulder of the consulting community who had done project management throughout, California, Nevada, and the whole region, and asked them, which are some of the better organizations that you've seen in delivering project management. And we got that list of recommendations from them.
But the organizations, were they all utilities?
Yes, they were all utilities.
And so you didn't look at other organizations and the way they manage, that are not utilities?
Initially, we did not. Here of late, we have. Through the Project Management Institute, we've gone through the Project Management Symposium, and we've exposed ourselves to other project management organizations outside the utility industry, in the for-profit industry, and we've actually gained quite a few ideas, and we're drafting a strategic plan to implement some of those ideas currently in our project.
I think it's limiting to look only, in your comfort level, only within the utilities, because you can gain a lot of knowledge and experience and good ideas from other organizations that are doing things well that may not be utilities.
And I agree with you 100%, and that's why we have kind of broadened our reach with the Project Management Institute and exposed ourselves to those private industries.
Yeah.
I agree. So that was program management. From a project management standpoint, we developed a project delivery manual so that our our procedures, protocols, tools could all be standardized. And another highlight was we were able to do resource allocations. One of the things that really hindered us in the past was because we did not have proper planning of our resources and our timelines, we did not adequately staff our personnel to deliver our capital program. And until we got this enterprise-wide platform where we could see and visualize what actual resources it took to deliver these projects, we didn't know that we were understaffed. So once that information became available to us, we kind of took a look at our staff around 2008 and increased that staff so we could properly staff these projects and deliver the projects on time and within budget. A couple of other things that we do that are really kind of high level in project management are baseline management, where we baseline our projects, again, at those gate meetings, at strategic points throughout our project management lifecycle. And we do earned value management with this, which is something that very few organizations do because it's tedious, it's time consuming, but it's an objective way of measuring the health of your project. The results of all of this effort is that our planning is much more effective. We're able to execute our capital program. We're on schedule. We've met all of our regulatory mandates for our water quality improvement projects. We increased our accuracy and transparent reporting for the organization. Just visually, this is a graph of the results of what has happened just in our ability to execute our major projects. As you'll see on the far left, and prior to 2008, in 2007, 2008, was prior to us implementing our project management organization. Our execution rate, meaning what we budgeted versus what we were actually to execute on, was only at 45%. Shortly after implementing our project management office, we increased that to 91%, 98%, 95%. Had a little hiccup in 2011 because our Headworks Reservoir and our River Supply Conduit, two of our major projects, were late in starting. But after that, we picked it up, and we are performing quite well again. So the process, we improved our program management. We had more accurate estimates and budget and schedules. And our capital planning was much improved. A lot of that improved data went into the foundation for our rate increase, our rate case that we just had. We're executing in our project management, and again, we're training, and we've got an entire training program that we developed for our project managers, and it all results in a well-executed capital program, all leading to more public confidence that the ratepayers are getting the best bang for their buck when it comes to our capital dollars. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Webster.
And so the power system, we have an engineering process that's very well defined, and we've done a tremendous job on managing big projects individually. Our weakness is managing an overall capital program, and this is where we need to improve. So what we're going to be doing is we're already pulling what water has learned into our system, and we are starting to step that activity up because over this 5-year rate plan, we need to do a much better job of delivering what we've promised. And so we're taking some of the technology, we're bringing that in, and by June of 2016, we plan to incorporate 20 projects so that we can really test how it's working for us, and then a full implementation by June of 2017. And we're going to be much better, and again, learning from the great work that Water Systems has done since 2008, so we can capitalize on that, and they've been very helpful in transferring that knowledge to us. We also have a couple of other systems that we'll be thinking about integrating in. We have a work management system which really helps us manage our distribution projects, so a lot of that the infrastructure projects we're on the hook to really perform on. We have a system in place, and how can we pull that into the system? And then we have Maximo, which is really our maintenance work management system. And so if we can pull all of that together by June of 2017, we'll have a pretty complete package as we move forward. We're also, just like water, we're beefing up our staffing so that we can actually have project managers that have that oversight into our overall program.
Water takes the lead.
We have, but we're gladly sharing all the information and all the lessons learned that we've had with the power system. Mr. Wright for joint.
Yes, you might remember that we've recently created a project management organization in Joint Systems. That one is different than this in that it's not focusing on major capital projects. It's focusing on conversion of major information technology systems. So we should be recruiting for that in about another 30 days. And that person will come in and again, oversee major system conversions like the finance system, like the customer service system that we recently did. And we'll be focusing on that. Same principles apply, but the background you need for that is more on an IT side versus an engineering side.
All sounds good. Questions, comments?
Brief comment. As we noted in the water rate review, the water system has done a great job on improving project management over the last decade. And it shows if we look back historically. The last time DWP as a total got close to spending its total capital budget was in the early 70s, where they got to 95% of their planned budget. And for water to be achieving 100% of its planned capital budget, that illustrates how unusual that is. So I think they're to be complimented on their accomplishments in this area.
I thought you were going to say he was about to be complicated.
Well, project management is complicated, but it has to be communicated to a lot of people.
Great. Any other questions or comments on this item? Thank you very much. Before we move into closed session, Commissioner Funderburk had something he wanted to address at the beginning, and it got sidetracked.
Yeah, so a couple of things. One, I had the great pleasure of going with the community led by the mayor to plant trees this weekend with the City Plants group that apparently has run out of City Hall. And I found out a lot more about City Plants from a briefing from Nancy Sutley. I'm looking forward to seeing more about what they do and how that actually connects their work with trees actually connects to our energy efficiency and meeting our regulatory mandates under our energy conservation goals as well. And then the second thing was as part of the rate package that we approved, there were performance standards and metrics that were proposed, and I assume that they're going to be rolled out over the next year. Madam General Manager, I would just ask if you could have your staff come back to our board in the next month to discuss what their vision of the equity metrics component of that is. It's something that is, I believe that Nancy already knows about this, but it's something that's that I've been more than interested in, and I do believe that you do your best to try to share all the benefits. But I was unaware myself that we actually have 2 or 3% mandated by state law that must go to public benefits of our, either power or water or both systems revenue. And so I look forward to hearing from the staff on specifically how they plan on rolling out the equity metrics that are going to be due February 2017, and working with staff on staying on top of that. And I would invite any of the other commissioners to join me if they have an interest in any meetings that happen before or after then as well. So, thank you.
Thank you. Council?
All right. The board shall publicly report any action taken in closed session and the vote or abstention of every member there present thereon in accordance with Section 54-957.1 of the California Government Code.
We will recess into closed session.
Yes.